Throughout this season of Gone Feral, we've been very lucky to have some industry experts along with us to help shoot our films. And one of these experts is Scott Abraham. Scott is a full-time wildlife camera operator and has a big camera and stuff, which means he's really good. As well as helping shoot Gone Feral, Scott has also worked on smaller, less premium indie productions, like BBC Springwatch. And earlier in the year, as spring turned to summer, Scott filmed a sequence for the Watches all about a pair of breeding white-tailed eagles, based around his local loch in Argyll, Scotland, which is why we've plonked him on a rock to ask him all about his experience with these birds. Why did you choose to film white-tailed eagles?
Because, I mean, they're such an iconic bird. I think they're absolutely magnificent. They're the largest eagle that we've got in the UK. I don't know, they were almost like the rulers of the loch. Everything would respond to what the whitetails were doing.
White-tailed eagles mainly hunt and eat fish, but also prey on mammals, other birds, and scavenge carrion. This unfussy diet is why they are rulers of the loch. When the eagles are out, everything else is on alert.
Okay, so you knew you wanted to do a film about the white-tailed eagles, but how did you find the eagles, or did you know about them before you pitched the idea?
I found out about the eagles through a local photographer friend, and I knew there's a lot of whitetails in Argyll, which is where I live. And if you understand the environment that they're often living within, and you just stay out and spend the time sort of wrecking locations, they're pretty big birds. So if you know where to look, they're pretty easy to spot, to be honest.
How big are they?
Pretty big. I mean, they've got a wingspan of 2.5 meters, so it's hard to miss that if you see it flying through the sky.
What's your wingspan for comparison?
I don't know, not 2.5 meters. That's a wingspan like 1.5 of me, so that's pretty nuts.
Although easy to spot, getting close to them responsibly isn't straightforward.
So you'd found these eagles, and then how did you get in a position to film them?
They're a Schedule 1 protected species, so to go within 400 metres of a nest site in breeding season, which is between, I think, January to September, you need a licence. You have to apply to, in Scotland, it's Nature Scotland who give out those licences, and they're quite careful with them because there's sadly quite a lot of raptor persecution still, which goes on within the UK and especially within Scotland.
Raptor persecution, which is illegal, is when birds of prey are deliberately harmed or disturbed, often in an attempt to benefit unnaturally high game bird populations for blood sports. White-tailed eagles actually went extinct in the UK in 1918, when the last one, up on Shetland, suddenly passed away, due to being shot. Thankfully though, Norway still had some, and in the 70s we began putting some back into Scotland. The trouble is, white-tailed eagles don't breed until they are 5 or 6 years old, and nests are often unsuccessful. So this reintroduced population was very slow to grow, and still at risk of extinction. So 2 more populations were reintroduced in the 90s and late 2000s. And now in Scotland there are over 100 territorial pairs. More recently, some white-tailed eagles have also been reintroduced in England, on the Isle of Wight. This species is still highly at risk though, especially as they are so easily disturbed from their nesting activities.
Did you witness any disturbance yourself while you were filming the eagles?
Yeah, I did witness quite a lot of disturbance. I saw, I think 4 times I had people walk very close to the nest and walk underneath it, and it wasn't purposeful disturbance, it was often just ignorance, they don't know the nest's there. But there was also other times, like there was a time where quite close to the nest, some people set off some fireworks and I watched the eagles fly off. It only needs to happen a few times for the eggs to get cold and then the chicks to fail.
Did you learn anything new about this species that you didn't know before?
That's a good question. I think I definitely did learn new stuff. I think any time that you spend like a significant amount of time filming an animal or whatever, you just get to understand that species a little bit better. I genuinely did feel like they had quite a lot of emotion in what they were doing. They were very invested in trying to raise this chick. Sadly the chick actually, the nest actually failed in the end. There's a significant period after it failed that they just stayed around the nest. They didn't want to give up on it. You know, they would still go back and they would still sit on the eggs, and it seemed like they knew that it wasn't, you know, it'd gone the period of time, the 38-day incubation period that the chicks have. They've not got it as easy as you would imagine, and that's definitely something that I learned as I was sort of filming them, spending more time with them.
Although sad, it isn't uncommon for white-tailed eagles to have unsuccessful nests. Around 30% of nests fail.
How did you feel and what was going through your mind when the nest did fail in the end?
Yeah, I was pretty gutted when the nest failed. You try as a wildlife filmmaker to try and not get too connected to these animals. If you're there to film behaviour, you just have to film what's happening. It's difficult to not get some level of attachment, especially when it's like an individual pair that you're following and you've spent quite a few months following them and filming them most days. I was really rooting for them, and so when they failed, I was pretty gutted. On a personal level, I really wanted them to have chicks, but maybe in some ways it's a better film because it'll maybe educate a few people about whitetails, and you know that it's not all great for them. Like they do fail, and quite often it's down to us. Like, you know, it's human disturbance, probably one of the biggest reasons why nests fail.
The harsh reality of the low breeding success rate wasn't surprising, but still somber nonetheless. But for all the lows, there are also the significant highs that only nature can deliver.
So which bit of behaviour was the most rewarding to film?
The first time that I was in the hide and the eagle came onto the nest, and I was just like, you know, properly like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. I was very close to it, closer than, like, you know, majority of people ever will be to an eagle. And the female came onto the nest and was sort of calling and calling and calling, and that noise, like, you know, when you hear a lion roar, it sort of, you feel it in here, and you like, it's kind of something quite primal about it. Like, very much felt that same thing when the eagle was calling, and then it sort of sat there, did some nest building, and then the male suddenly came into shot, and yeah, that was a pretty special moment. That was quite cool.
Would you say that's the bit that's going to stick with you the most, the initial encounter?
Definitely, yeah. It was really, really cool. That first time they flew into the nest was awesome.